So help me God, I do. Sure. Jill Lawler, Lawler, Sarasota Avenue. Good evening. I concur with many of the other speakers who suggest that next time a zoning ordinance comes before you for a public hearing, that you elevate the resident to the same type of respect that you gave to Prakashanti Group. I see you're nodding. Thank you so much. So today I want to talk about a few things, and maybe in a little different way than has been discussed so far tonight. But the first thing I want to point out is if you go to housingri.gov, that website, housingri.gov, the state has asked all the communities, towns and municipalities to self-report where they are on the ADU ordinance, right? And if you look at that, you'll see a variation. It's interesting, some even are blank, having submitted nothing. One is Warwick, which is where I believe the Speaker of the House lives and represents. There's nothing there. So as far as what a couple members from the audience have asked in the past, why is this moving so quickly? I have to think that the other municipalities that are leaving things blank or not all the way done are taking the time needed to be able to make the recommendations best for their communities. So I hope that you do that tonight. And as far as that goes, what I have in front of me are questions that I've come up with that I think would be answered if you do have a workshop, which you should. It sounded very much like the president last week was trying to come to a consensus and say, does the council believe that we should workshop? I hope that you do come to that conclusion because you did promise us that was what you would do. I remember when Councilor Colonnese brought that up and said that he was going to open the public hearing and he intended, when the public hearing closed, to make a motion. There was a round of applause out here because we felt heard, that people wanted to be able to have the town council listen to our concerns and be heard. So I hope at the end tonight you make the same recommendation. Go ahead and workshop because there's a lot to think about. So the first thing I want to talk about is our water. Where does Narragansett get our water from? Not from Narragansett. We do not have a source for water. We buy our water from South Kingstown and North Kingstown. Now, why is that important? It's important because South Kingstown has already told us through URI that the university is building dorms. They're even talking about building a medical school. So what does that mean? More water use. How about North Kingstown? Well, North Kingstown announced something very exciting last week. They announced that they will be initiating 500 units to be built for housing. 500. That's great for them. How does that work for us? Will they still have the water to be able to sell to our town? So here are some questions after just having those two bits to talk about. Have you asked the town manager to speak with the town engineer and the DPW director to find out if we will still be able to buy the current amount of water from South Kingstown and North Kingstown as our supply we need right now? Not to mention what's going to happen potentially with the ADUs, as well as all the other types of building that you're looking at for the town. So number one, can we still have the same amount, knowing that you're increasing your housing supply, and will you be able to give us some more? Next, has the town manager and the town engineer, have they made the actual inquiries with those departments? Have they sat down and had those conversations so that we can make sure that these conversations have existed? What type of discussions has a town manager and a town engineer had to determine that our capacity for both water and sewer will be met if we add on the ADUs as well as all the other type of building that you're looking at doing? What type of assessment has been made by the DPW director and the town engineer on our existing infrastructure, and what is the cost estimated to expand in order to handle the additional build-out that you're talking about? Mr. Brady mentioned this at one of his planning board meetings, and to his knowledge and to my knowledge, and nothing was brought up at the planning board meeting, that any of these questions were asked. Vitally important. How much is it going to cost, and what are our current infrastructure? Anybody who lives in the south end of town noticed probably this week that there was a water main breakout by Aunt Carrie's. That happens quite often, north end of town as well. So if our current infrastructure can't handle what we have right now, how the heck is it going to handle when you add on, by right, all these different types of housing units you're looking at? So by right, let's talk about the ADUs by right. If you take a look at what the ordinance is, there are three ways that you can have an ADU by right. The first one is a reasonable accommodation for family. The second one is if you have a 20,000 square foot lot, and the third being an existing primary structure with a footprint of an existing attached or detached structure. So those are the three things you can do. If you take further look at what the state law for the ADU says, specifically in section for design structure, number 2 and then 3 small i's, it states the following. For all ADU applicants, and the tail end of the statement is really what I want to talk about, but I want to read the whole thing so that you don't think I'm just taking out certain portions. For all ADU applications, a municipality shall not require infrastructure improvements in certain connection with an ADU, including but not limited to separate water or sewer lines or expanded septic capacity, unless such improvements and or modifications are required by the state for compliance under state law or regulation to comply with the building code requirements or to address capacity or upgrades necessary to accommodate the ADUs. Again, address the capacity to upgrade necessary to accommodate the ADUs. How are you going to know right now what we need for capacity to accommodate the ADUs? Nobody here knows what will happen come June 16. That would be the second vote for this ordinance, and that means the next morning, June 17, how long will the line be around the building for people to apply for these ADUs? We have, what, 9,000 dwellings in town? How many hundreds or thousands are going to say, I want one by right? And then how much water, how much sewer do we have in order to accommodate that? So add on the by right. What does that mean for the existing capacity we have right now? Including the affordable housing that people applauded for tonight. Will you be able to have the capacity for water and sewer to have other types of buildings and other types of developments that this town drastically needs, including affordable housing? So if you're going to add the ADUs right now, I do applaud Mr. Durkin saying that you want to have it be a year-round, but let's talk about it. There's only a few of us here. We're all good friends. We can talk about what's really going to happen if an ADU is told to be year-round occupancy. What are the roundabouts? How are people going to get around that? Because that's what people are going to do. Let's face it. So we have no ordinance right now, or no mechanism right now to check on that. So you're going to say, okay, in the ordinance, in this town law, it has to be occupied annually. You have to have a year-round lease. So the roundabouts that would be then for, okay, well, maybe there are some good people in this town that have a house that's too big for themselves. Maybe they want to build on an ADU, move to that ADU themselves, and then rent out the house that they're living in to a family, and that would be great. I mean, that would be one of the things that we would need to increase families and year-round living in the town. But that's just kind of too easy, right? Because someone pointed it out tonight, I think it was Mr. Frandy, that it's not going to be good enough to be able to have an ordinance to say that, no, I'm sorry, it was Mr. Donfrillo, because he asked Mr. Callahan, who was kind to answer, what would happen if you were found to be breaking the ordinance, to not having a year-round, having someone sublet it out? And the answer was it would go in front of the municipal court and you'd be fined $500 a day. But we have seen time and time again that the municipal court judge knocks down the fees. So why not do the following? Because I think it would be something that sounds like this council wants to do, and good for you, to make it more year-round housing, make it deed restrictions. If we would go ahead and say to the property where we're putting an ADU, that we're going to put a deed restriction on that property so that it can only be year-round, both on the short-term, on the ADU, as well as the existing dwelling, that will be a way to ensure that we have more of a year-round population. And again, this is all things that you can work on when you do a workshop. Additionally to that, this has been brought up before, and I know it's one of the things that I would have loved to work on, had I been in your seat right now. What type of tax incentives can we give to people who would be good enough to go ahead and have year-round housing, either in the ADU or in the larger home that they have? So to kind of close up on that, I think that if you were to ask anybody in this room, including yourselves, do you know of any family who would benefit from this, who would benefit from maybe an older couple, maybe a single older person who doesn't need the house that they have anymore, the size? They can go ahead and put an ADU, move into that ADU, and rent out the other portion of their house that they desperately need for money for fines. How many of us know people that would jump at the opportunity to be that lucky family for that house? I mean, I know, Alex, you're on the school committee. Jason, you have kids in schools. Donna, you have your grandkid in schools. I'm sure that you know many families who would jump at this. So be the council that brings them year-round housing. Be the council that's going to want to listen and workshop to come up with more ideas such as this. The last thing I want to bring up, and I promise will be last because look, it's 11:15 at night, and I'm sure you're going to want to extend the meeting, is about the planning board report itself. I am a big fan of the planning board. I've already advocated for you to reappoint Mr. Brady when his time comes up in November, but I have to tell you, I don't think that this planning board did their best job on this ordinance, particular ADU. And the reason I'm saying that to you is there's no need to push this through because it's what the planning board worked with for a year and gave it to you. They missed a couple big things. One thing you tried to correct tonight with the 12 months, again, I think a deed restriction is going to be much more, telling to the town, and we will be able to know that a town council in the future won't be able to come in and have an executive session and have come to a consensus and say, let's just not enforce that. Let's just not enforce it. That won't happen. But again, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. Oh, so yes, I know that this wasn't the planning board's best job. They also forgot one other thing that has not been mentioned yet tonight. It's the parking. That part of the state requirement is to have one off-street parking space per bedroom. How is that going to be accommodated here? How do you have the ability to do that? So in closing, you have more questions than answers. So do yourselves a favor, do us a favor, have answers to these vitally important questions before you go ahead and just make a vote. What's it going to hurt to have a workshop? You can always vote in the future a different way, but don't you like to always have information in front of you to answer questions before you make a vote? I mean, I know I do. That's how I run my personal life and business. And I'm sure the 5 of you do as well. So all I'm asking you to do, take your foot off the gas, put it on the brake, go ahead, have a public workshop, take the time, because we haven't had a public workshop on this, put it on your list, and do the right thing for the town. Thank you.